Welcome everyone to Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about my most recent blog, the lesser versus the higher version of yourself. Sometimes you might hear how you can reach a higher potential, or you might be able to get out of your lesser way of thinking or habits. Well, today we're going to be talking about that because in a way, we will operate on our lesser self versus our higher self. We have so much more to give, right? That potential that we have is abundant. Many of us don't even realize that we have it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and to share this video and or audio to help build a community of like-minded individuals. Now, when we look at the blog today, what I want you to take away or to put into your mind is that just because we operate on a lesser version of ourselves at some points or sometimes in our life doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing life wrong. Sometimes you just might need a break. And sometimes that break could be watching Netflix or going on your smartphone, things like that, right? Now, most of the time is not conducive to success, or most of the time is not conducive to recharging your batteries 100%. That's the problem that many people face. So they'll work a job Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday, they go out with friends, they drink, they stay up all night playing video games. All of these different things might not be helping you be better for Monday. Now, if going out with your friends helps you be better for Monday, meaning you love Monday, you're like, Monday's coming, you're like, yeah, Monday. Okay, you're probably doing it right. But if Monday comes around and you're just hungover, lethargic, low energy, maybe what you did on the weekend wasn't energizing. It was an energy drainer. And it's not to say that the things you do are all energy drainers. For example, let's say you go out with your family to an amusement park on Saturday. Of course, that day is going to be filled with energy consumption. On Sunday, you're going to be exhausted, not only because you went out all day and you didn't get really a chance to relax, but you've been in the sun all day. You have to watch your kids if you have any. There's a lot more to it than just to do it. So going to the amusement park or the water park or wherever you go could be an energy drainer, but you still do it to create that family time, right? That family bond. So it's kind of like you give your time for money at work, and for a home and for your family, you give your time for enjoyment and happiness. But sometimes we don't put the two together. We just say, well, I have to be a dad, or I have to be a mom, or I have to be a parent, or whatever you have to be. And then you do the things that you're supposed to do, and then you find that you don't have any energy the day after. Now, I will say that this self-sacrifice is not something that you have to continue your whole life. If you don't like going to the amusement park, then don't go. Figure out what you do like and figure out ways where maybe you can get your energy back. And then, of course, spend time with your family. When I was younger, we went to Smiles Entertainment or Chuck E. Cheese. They had video games, they had laser tag, they had like water bumper cars, and we would go there maybe once a month, every other couple of months. My father would take me. It was a way for us to spend time together, of course, with him, but he also did that for him too, because he had a good time playing video games too. And we got to spend time together. We got to go out to eat together. So it was that family outing that we were able to do. But at the same time, we were hitting two birds, one stone. We were recharging for the week, playing video games, going out, having a good time with the family. And then on Monday, we would just reminisce on that time we had, right? So we're like, oh, I can't wait to go back. And it was always like a surprise when we went, because it was kind of like, oh, wow, we're here again. This is going to be awesome. And then it's a whole mission now. So it's a lot to it when we're trying to be our higher self, but there is a way to do it where it's effortless. I just spoke a whole bunch without getting into the blog. So let me show you the blog and let's get into that, get some talking points, and then go from there. All right. If you're new to the channel, you can head over to revenconcepts.com, go to the resources tab, and then go to blogs, and then you will just click blogs, and then the most recent blog will be there. And the most recent blog that has come out is the lesser version versus the higher version of you. I did do an introduction on this, and now we have a good understanding of the lesser version versus the higher version in the sense of energy consumption. But what is the lesser version of ourselves, right? The lesser version of ourselves is going to be the part of the brain or the part of ourself that is trying not to push. For example, if we know we're supposed to go to the gym today and we don't, That's our lesser version speaking. Now, if you don't go to the gym because you're sick, then that is not your lesser version speaking. So there's going to be caveats, I guess you can say, if it's your lesser version, if it's a neutral version, or is it going to be your higher version. So if we're trying to do something and we don't give 100%, it could be our lesser version. Also, maybe looking at the higher version aspect of it too. If we are doing a task, we want to give 100%, but we work more efficiently. I mean, we can be looked at as other people as being efficient versus other people might see us as being lazy. It is in the eye of the beholder, is what I'm trying to say. You can think that you're doing all these wonderful things in your life with the lesser version of yourself. And then most people will say, hey, you're not doing a lot. You're not doing your utmost. And then you can see that maybe once you get a coach, or if you really did some introspection and you're like, okay, you're right. I am not doing my 100%. I'm just doing 50, 60%. Most people do that. Most people think that they are giving all this energy, all this effort. And I was a victim of it too, up until I think 2018. And I thought I was working hard. And it wasn't until I got a mentor that the mentor said, you have to work harder. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, man, I'm already working pretty hard. So now I'm like a little bit worried because it's like, what type of work is he going to give me? I'm already working probably 60 plus hours a week. And I have been all the way since high school. So it's kind of like, where am I going with this? Am I not working hard enough, or am I working in the wrong way? And it turns out that I was working in the wrong way. I was being inefficient with my hours and my time. So I was a lesser version of myself because I wasn't efficient. Even though I had the hours, even though I had the mindset of being a higher version of myself, I was still working incorrectly. So we have to get into that way of thinking too, because it's more than just saying my lesser version of myself is me watching Netflix and my higher version of myself is me reading a book. Maybe, right? It's going to be different for every single person. Now, what I want to talk to you about the difference between the lesser version and the higher self is that the lesser version is going to be like your store brand type of product. Not to say that that product is bad. For example, Walmart, they have great value. That's their store's product. Their ketchup actually has less sugar than Heinz ketchup. And Heinz is kind of like one of those bigger name brands. I can say, well, I'm only going to eat Heinz ketchup. I'm not going to eat no store-bought ketchup or some store brand ketchup. But guess what? There's more sugar in the big brand. Maybe you pay for that extra sugar. But then at the same time, we understand that too much sugar is not necessarily good. So if you want some ketchup, why not go for the lesser sugar option? But when we're dealing with our lesser self, we are automatically given the idea that, oh, this is inferior. And I spoke about this before. Just because it's your lesser self does not mean it's your inferior self. You're not inferior. You are abundant. You just have to change your mindset to think in the higher realm more than the lesser realm. That is what this blog is about. Now, we do talk about how the current state and the circumstances of everything in the hands that we were dealt might make us be lesser. So, for example, right now we have record high inflation. We talked about it last week on the podcast. The current state of mindset. Well, the current state of mindset is going to be high inflation, people trying to figure out where they're going to get their food from, how they're going to pay their mortgage or their rent. I mean, there's going to be many different factors that cause people to not want to take action. So the current state of mindset that we spoke about last week, Monday, is going to give us a good understanding of the factors of why we might not be acting. So when we have our lesser self, our lesser version of ourselves, we are not going to want to be acting. However, if we do act, we do have a probability or possibility that we're going to have actions that are in line with our higher version of ourselves. And you might be wondering, well, what does the higher version of myself look like? Well, we're going to be getting into that just momentarily. But before we get into that higher self, I want to remind you that what we talk about here on this blog is not going to be word by word, right? I'm not going to read the whole blog for you. So I encourage you to check it out, and I encourage you to get that wisdom from all the blog articles that come out every single Monday. The link is in the description box below, so click it, and then once you're there, you can really read the blog. And many people who read the blog, they will send me a message or they'll send me an email and they'll say, hey, you know what, I read this blog and I have some questions, or I read this blog and it's exactly what I needed. So this blog is going to be like that key almost, right? All the blogs are keys basically, where if you read it, that personal development type of phase, that was 2 weeks ago, we talked about that. How can we get into that personal development type of mindset? We need to drown ourselves per se with data and knowledge that is going to help us invigorate us to be more and to want more. And that is higher self in a nutshell. So let's get into that way of thinking, right? Let's start moving into that higher way of thinking versus that lesser way of thinking. So as I spoke about in the blog, we have the option to be a lesser version of ourselves or a higher version of ourselves. And in the blog, I do give many more examples of what a lesser version of yourself looks like and what a higher version of yourself looks like. But just for the sake of anyone who hasn't read the blog quite yet, is you are going to be more efficient when you're your higher self. That means if you can do 10 laps without stopping on your higher self, maybe your lower self might be able to do 8 laps, right? And it's in those last 2 laps that our brain is saying, stop, give up. Those limiting beliefs, that type of mindset that wants us to stop and give up. Well, in life, we have a choice. We can fight for survival, or we can give up and die. And I guess maybe there's a third option, and that's to remain complacent in our comfort zone and with our circumstances. So you just have to kind of figure out what you want in your life. Now, sometimes people might be perfectly satisfied with the life that they have. And I'm not here to say what type of life you should have. It's kind of like, well, what life would you like to have? Some people are just going to allow their life to happen, and then they're going to be upset that their life is happening in this manner. But they have that option to change their whole life around, their whole perspective around, their way of thinking, but they choose not to. And that kind of leads us to, why do we not think more in line to being our higher self more than our lesser self? And that goes back to the brain. The brain wants nothing more than easy. If it can have easy, it would take it every single day of the week. Oh, wait, I can have ice cream before I can have dinner? Perfect. I'm going to eat ice cream only. Now, of course, you're going to get tired of the sweets. And then, of course, you might get a stomach ache. You get tired of the ice cream. So you do want foods that are going to be giving you some type of nutrients. But most people are not going to just eat desserts all their whole life, right? If our brain knows not to eat desserts our whole life, not saying that people don't eat desserts every single day. If we know that our brain doesn't want desserts for dinner only, why are we not operating at a higher version of ourselves if we're operating at a lesser version of ourselves? And that can be a little bit confusing to understand that way of thinking, right? Because if we can take the high road, right? Enjoyment, sugar, sweets, why not take it and why not have it, right? And that is because anything easy is not worth having. Because if anyone can attain it easily, the value goes away. Think of diamonds and gold. The reason why they go up in price is because of their process of refining it, number one, and two, the scarcity of it. So if I don't have a lot of diamonds in the world manufactured, guess what happens? I'm going to actually want to pay more for this diamond because it's kind of like supply and demand. It's a luxury item. There's actually a company or an organization that regulates the supply or how much diamonds are in influx at any given time. And that is to maintain the value of diamonds. Because if diamonds were everywhere, like you can just go to the corner and get diamonds, it would be useless. In a sense, that is kind of like what we do when it comes to things that are easily attainable and things that are not easily attainable. For example, if dirt wasn't readily available as soon as we could walk outside, imagine how much money that dirt would be. So think of like Waterworld, for example, where everyone's like living on boats, and then in order to get like the soil and the dirt, you have to kind of dive down and you have to either, have this right equipment or whatever it be. It's a whole make-believe movie, but just kind of just thinking about why dirt can be expensive, right? So supply and demand. And right now, if we look at our market, everything's more expensive, right? And a little bit is going to be dealing with supply shortages, but it's also going to be the increase in gas that the truckers have to bring the food to the store. So of course their expense goes off to us. So it's kind of like a cascading effect of things that are happening where it's like, okay, this is the reason why things are happening. And when we have the option to show up every single day, to figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to act, we are given a unique opportunity. And this happens probably every day. We can choose to be that lesser version or to be that higher version. Now, for me, I tend to be my higher version probably 4 or 5 days out of the week. Now, if I'm a lesser version of myself, it's going to be to recoup, meaning I've been pushing hard, and now it's time to take a break. Because if you are familiar with this podcast and you're familiar with what I do, and I have a blog and a podcast episode on burnout, the best way to prevent burnout is not to allow it to happen. Okay. Burnout is one of those things that you do not want in your life. So if you're operating at a higher version of yourself and you hit burnout, guess what? It's going to be extremely difficult to remain at that high level. And now you're subconsciously going to move down to your lesser version of yourself. And you have to ask yourself, how long is this burnout going to last? And that's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be different depending on the type of stress that you had and the reason why you burned out. So figuring all that out is a part of the process too, because the lesser version of ourselves wants easy and the higher version of ourselves wants action and progress. Not saying you can't get progress with your lesser version. It's just the amount. So one last look at the blog, the lesser version versus the higher version of you. We are going to be, again, talking about the different versions of ourselves, the one that's going to be pushing ourselves every single day to the highest capability, and one that is going to be looking for easy street and trying to take a road that's a little bit less challenging. And I know you might hear this quite a lot in the motivational world, and I know Tony Robbins talks about this a lot, reaching your fullest potential, unlocking your fullest potential. And in a sense, our higher self is going to be our fullest potential. But what I want to tell you is that the lesser version of yourself is a part of you also. You can choose to be a lesser version of yourself if it's calculated, meaning if you know when to take a break, you take a break. So it's kind of like push and pull, push and pull. When do you push? When do you pull? And I know some people go 100% and then they burn out. That's what happens for New Year's resolutions typically. They give 100%. They're the higher version of themselves and they're pushing. And all of a sudden they stop right 3 months in, right? What happened was they couldn't create a version of balance between their lesser version and their higher version. That's it. So if you can balance these next New Year's resolutions coming out, just kind of think in your head, not in the sense of balance, meaning, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 3.5 days a week, right? You want to create balance in the sense of, okay, I know when to push, I know when to take a break, but I understand that I'm not going to be taking a break all 7 days too, right? And then we don't stop because of circumstance. The higher version of ourselves is always going to push no matter the circumstance, no matter the challenge. So yeah, I might not be feeling good and I still show up at the gym, but I do have rules. If I'm sick, I don't go to the gym because I would rather sleep, recover, and then also not get people sick at the gym. If I'm just like tired because I worked all night, or if I have been up recording, or I have all these interviews, or I'm working with all these clients, I might not have the luxury of being well rested. By all means, I am definitely pushing myself to the brink of burnout, probably on a weekly basis. But I know the magic. I know the formula to help me get into that mindset, to not burn out, to operate more in a week on my higher version versus my lesser version. So even if I can push 4 days of my higher version and 3 days of my lesser version, that is still a good week for me. And in this blog, you're going to get a good understanding the difference between the two, your lesser version of yourself and the higher version of yourself. And you might think that you're doing something wrong when you're thinking in your lesser mind, but you're not, right? It's about that balance. It's about understanding where you are, where you want to be. And if you are having a hard time trying to figure out where you are, the best thing you can do possibly for yourself is getting a coach. So a coach is going to be that person who's going to help you see your blind spots, help you push when you need to push, help you relax when you need to relax. Many people take it into their own hands to take a break when they want. Imagine if you were a basketball player and you're running on the court and the game's on, right? It's game time. And all of a sudden, guess what happens? I just stop. I'm tired. I'm going to take a break. The coach is going to take you out so quick, you won't know what happened. Why are you not giving 100% up and down that court? I understand you're tired. I understand this is a very strenuous type of game. But why would you stop in the middle of the action? And in life, we have that choice. We can stop in the heat of it all, or we can keep on pushing regardless of the pain, regardless of the struggle, regardless of the challenge. It's about being defiant and not giving up, giving 100% as much as we can. And then if we have to pull back to 80% or 70%, whatever it be, whatever we need to recover, our goal is 100%. So the lesser version of ourselves might not be 100%. It could be 95%, but it's not 100%. So finding that balance is going to be essential. And when you get a coach or when you get a guide or a mentor to help you understand that balance between your lesser version and your higher version, you're going to start to see your life shift for the better. Many people don't reach success or great amounts of success and wealth is because they fail at this aspect in life. They will have more lesser version of themselves than the higher version of themselves. And then they also misplace the higher version with their lesser version. For example, if I go to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, I might think that's my higher version of myself. Oh, I'm going to work, I'm providing for my family, I'm making good money, I'm operating at the higher version of myself. Though you might be operating at a higher version of yourself, understand that you're probably not doing everything you can. Of course, if you're teetering on the line of figuring out work-life balance or trying not to get burnout, of course, we put that into factor. But many people go to work 9 to 5, they come home, they eat a poor meal. I'm not saying the meal is poor, but the meal is unhealthy. And then they will sit down and do nothing, go to sleep, repeat. And that's their whole week, that's their whole month, that's their whole year, that's their whole life. So we have to get out of that rat race, that way of thinking, and get into a different way of thinking, right? So that's the higher version of ourselves. So we challenge ourselves after work. It doesn't have to be a crazy challenge. You might say, I want to read 1 page of this book today. You read 1 page of the book. I want to learn how to play an instrument. Play an instrument for 10 minutes. Maybe you want to learn a language. Maybe practice for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or speak to someone who knows the language, and then just kind of play around for like 5-10 minutes. So there's things that we can do, but most times people are going to just do the same things, the remedial things. Everything's redundant in their life. So they have to get out of that way of thinking, right? Everything is going to be the same for their whole entire life. Well, guess what? If you keep doing the same thing, then you should expect the same actions. So if you need to figure out those new actions that you need to be taking, those higher actions, those better actions, you're better off getting someone who's going to help you see what is the next step, right? Because if you're stuck where you are and you're just kind of in this rat race or in this circle or in this loop of never-ending normality, it's time to spice things up, because life should be spicy in the sense of operating on your higher self versus your lesser version. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me, coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.